Welcome back. Today I will talk about the dark web and Tails. Tails is a very private operating system, and it addresses some of the shortcomings inherent in standard operating systems. I will do this unit in several steps. So first I talk about private services to send messages, so email services and instant messages using the dark web. And then I will explore Tails, the operating system. I tell you how to install it, how to use it, and later we try to configure Tails. Now, before we go into it, I stress a few important warnings when I talk about emailing and messaging, and in a separate session we talk about the operating system Tails. First of all, it's essential to note that Tor has its limitations. As we discussed in a previous unit, all the communication you have doesn't go through the Tor network, because your operating system, so your Windows operating system or your Mac operating system, also communicates with the internet all the time. And these communications are not secure. So to improve your level of security, what you need to do is you need to explore alternative operating systems. And we do this in the second part of this unit. It's also important to stress that there is a high risk of attacks on the dark web. So when you navigate to certain websites on the dark web, there is very little protection you can have. So it's important to make sure that the operating system you use is as safe as possible. I think that's an important issue. What you also might have noticed is that the Tor system is very slow sometimes. The reason why it's slow is partly built in, because as you have seen, traffic is moved through the network in several steps. So that of course always slows down speed. The other issue is that your internet service provider or your VPN provider, they tend to block Tor or try to block it or slow it down. So there's an issue of what you call throttling, where the traffic is massively slowed down. The best way to approach this problem if you experience a very slow Tor connection is to use a bridge. And I will show you right now how that works. I just go to my normal browser and navigate to bridges.torproject.org. You just find this by a standard Google or Bing search. And we saw this website before, but we haven't really used bridges. So I just click now on Get Bridges, because we already have a download of a Tor browser. I just click on Get Bridges and type in, hopefully correctly, these symbols. So let's see whether I'm correct. I am. I just select all, do a little copy paste here, and then I open my Tor browser. So let me open that. It now connects to Tor, and here we are. We can again use our check.torproject just to have a little look whether it's all done successfully. And you see it's not massively fast. Yeah, and again we can just click on the symbol and we see where we are heading. We go to Sweden, then the UK, Germany, and then out basically. Yeah, so that's what it is. That's our IP address as it appears. Now when you click on this symbol here, the Open Application menu, and go into Settings, your your list might look a little bit different. It depends on the version of your Tor browser. In between, I also updated the browser. You go to settings, you go to Tor, and you click here on use a bridge, and now we simply provide this, copy pasting the information. So that should be it. Okay, so we have done that. We can close it now and start it again. And now I connect to Tor. I'm connecting to bridge. You saw this popping up. And now I'm in the Tor network using a bridge. Yeah, again, check it in the settings, go to settings, and now you see we are using a bridge. So this is quite easy to do, and it tends to speed things up. Yeah, so that's quite a good solution in many cases. All right. The next issue I have to stress is that whatever you do on the Tor network, you have to be very mindful that many people are watching. One has to be realistic. It's important to note that even with all the layers of security, so even if you use the Tor browser, even if you use maybe a VPN to connect to the Tor network, and even if you use Tails, which is a very, very secure operating system, even then there is a possibility to be identified. And in particular, advances in artificial intelligence is making this even more of an issue. One way to identify users is to check the way they type into social media accounts. Yeah, for instance, when you use Twitter and you start typing a message, or you post a message on maybe Reddit or any other social media platform, the way you type, if you use your browser and you start typing, is unique. So the speed you need to type a certain word is very unique. The mistakes you make while typing is very unique. So good AI systems, yeah, so really, the top end of it, only need 500 words from you to identify you. So whenever you type anything on a browser, it can be used to identify you in this case. So even if you use a very secure way to hide your true IP address and so on, it can still be used to identify you. Yeah, but of course it's still not very easy then to link you to the actual you. Yeah, so there's always still a layer of protection here. However, it's important to note that whenever you want to post anything, you do this offline. So basically what you do is you use a standard text editor like Word, LaTeX, or whatever you want to use. And you just then use that and copy paste from it once you're online. Yeah, so copy pasting is perfectly fine, because then the way you type cannot be monitored. So it's just another little hint, and you see how tricky things get. Next, I want to talk about email services and instant messaging. Now, to be honest, there are so many different services available, it's almost impossible to cover it properly. What I also have to stress is that all these dark web providers, so the hidden services, they keep changing all the time. For instance, just a few months ago, there was a fake ID service which was called Forsaken on the dark web, which provided basically fake online IDs. What that actually means is not that you get passports or something like this, but it gives you basically a fake ID, and you can be consistent when you use it online. So it provides information such as names, addresses, which are all of course just arbitrary, but it gives you a consistent story to tell. Now this service is no longer available, so you have to always check these hidden services, because the links tend to work only for a short time, so you have to keep searching for it. There are some providers on the clear web which are perfectly fine to use anyway. This is nothing illegal whatsoever. There are lots of providers. Again, this is partly on the clear net, but also on the dark web, that give you temporary email access, and I will show you some of them. And the other issue is you get lists in GitHub, which is a repository for coders on various services. But these things have to be updated all the time, because unfortunately most of these links will only work for a short period of time. Good, let's just explore a bit. So we have done the bridge, so that's all fine. Let's look into these GitHub pages. So here's a long list of providers for email, and this is a temporary email, and we look at one of them. And again, you have to keep checking this, because quite often these providers, they don't last very long. And here are further links to hidden services. Again, most likely these links, they won't work anymore, because they have to be updated all the time. But it's quite useful to check that. Now this is too old, you know, that's 5 years old. So we have to look for something a bit more up to date. Yeah. These are now clear net services for temporary email addresses. So just refresh that. So it gives you for 10 minutes an email address, which you see up here, which you can use for certain purpose, shall we say. Of course, what they say here is you can use it to sign up to services if you don't want to provide your real email address, so it makes sure you're still private. Of course, you see they also want to sell VPNs, and again, we already discussed it, and we know it's not really what people promise. It doesn't really give you the privacy and anonymity you might like to look for. But these of course, obviously can be abused. You know, one has to be honest. So these temporary email addresses are very often used to send spam, or to do or start phishing attacks, to send, for instance, a link to a cryptocurrency wallet, where people are then asked to donate some money in order to, for instance, get access to their own data. So if you attack someone, that's quite a common way to extort money. So these services do exist on the ClearNet, but of course, obviously, the bad guys, they use something similar on the dark web, and there are plenty of these services if you look for it. Another thing I will show you are the fake ID providers. Again, this is entirely it's harmless fun. Again, of course, it can be abused, and there's plenty of evidence that this is used also in online fraud. So this again is ClearNet, so it's just on the normal internet, and what you can do is you can simply randomly generate a person. Let me just generate one here, and you get the name, you get ethnicity, date of birth, and all sorts of information, phone numbers, mobile phone number, some email addresses, and actually they're of course not necessarily working, but it gives you basically all the things you need to register for a service online if you want to, including passport numbers and all sorts of stuff. Yeah. So that's quite extensive, so you don't have to make up stuff, and the important thing is if you use these services, you remember basically what these people actually are. Yeah, so you can actually start using exactly the same stuff like security answers, so you don't forget it. Yeah, that's of course useful again, and it's used by certain people that use that for various, not necessarily legal reasons. Another important provider for emails is ProtonMail. I use that as well. This is quite a secure web provider. The interesting thing about ProtonMail is that it is encrypted, so it's quite safe. one has to say. It's used quite extensively also by members of parliament, at least this is what the rumor is telling. The other thing is this works on the ClearNet with standard email addresses, so you can use it to send emails to whatever, Yahoo, Gmail and so on. But it also works on the dark web as well. Now, ProtonMail is very proud to be located in Switzerland, so it is relatively protected. However, one has to be very careful. The same applies to VPN providers. So if you use that, obviously, for some not too acceptable, ways to do business, shall we say, that's not a good idea. Yes, and of course there are plenty of dark web providers that provide a much higher level of security. Another service I show is dismail.de, so that's a private messaging service, and we will see later when we use Tails that we can use quite sophisticated messaging services that are very private. So that's basically what I wanted to show you. In the slides you get some further links. Again, any Onion services I refer to are likely not working, or they might not work for a long time. Another good starting point to look for services is onion.live, so that works on the dark web. We already looked at onion.ws, which gives you links to certain markets. Okay, so I think that's maybe a good start on email services. We talked already a bit about instant messaging. Again, there's a long list of these available on GitHub. Jabber is a good choice. We will use actually Pigeon because it's already installed on Tails, but again we can use different services. All of that is freely available. Alright, so I think these are important things to consider. So obviously if we talk about the context of cybersecurity and the issue of hacking, you can be quite certain that someone who is sophisticated enough will use these methods to hide their identity. It's very likely that if you get an email asking for payments after an attack, that these emails are not permanent emails, they're only temporary emails. They're only used to send links to methods of payment, for instance, like a cryptocurrency wallet. The other issue is that proper hackers will use most likely Tails or a similar operating system that is quite secure, which makes it very hard in combination with Tor to locate them. Yeah, so I think that's a real challenge. There is surprisingly very little academic literature on these topics, and I think that's something to note. There are a few articles, and I will put some links on Blackboard. But for your own assignments, for instance, I think it might be interesting to explore some further academic writing. But I have to stress it is surprisingly limited, in spite of its importance in terms of financial crime and cybersecurity. Okay. Next, what we do is we look into Tails, but I will do this in the next session. See you.